everyone, Nick Chris of Nick Seasonal Decor, and I'm back home from Illinois. We were at Crafters Convention for almost a week now, so we just got home today actually, around 2 o'clock. We drove, which was kind of a stupid decision of us, and it was about 18 hours. So we are pooped, but I am going to try to do a lot more lives a lot more often. I felt incredibly inspired from all of the people that were there, and I truly just need to pick up my game and show you guys different designs and be on here a lot more often. So what I thought we would do is kind of something new, kind of like a Christmas in July special, if you will, and I'm going to try to go live every single day with a different design, whether it be something a little bit longer in time, like designing a complete wreath, which we're doing today for July 1st, or something simpler, such as creating a fancy Christmas bow or Halloween, anything. Doesn't necessarily have to be Christmas, even though I do enjoy making Christmas designs the most. So let me pull up the feed. Awesome, I see some of you guys watching. So, of course, like I was talking about at Crafters Convention, I don't really prepare all that much, which is good and bad. Sometimes it surprises me and we design something beautiful. Sometimes it's a total flop, and we don't like, or at least I don't like what we create. So today I just quickly grabbed some of my ribbons. I saw one sign that kind of inspired me for today's video. This says North Pole, Airmail, and this either came from Trendy Tree or Craft Outlet. If they carry it on Trendy Tree, I highly recommend you purchase it from Trendy Tree. I love those ladies at Trendy Tree, and you always want to support small businesses, so definitely pick it up there. And even if they don't have this exact one, they always carry different circular metal signs like this. So my original plan was to design a snowman wreath using this because I absolutely love it, but I feel as though that's a little bit simple, so we may do that later on in the month. So we're going to be using a 15 to 24 inch work wreath. Today we're using the jumbo tinsel ties. So these aren't the pencil tinsel ties. These are a little bit thicker. I don't know what happened to this wreath. Clearly everything is kind of messed up a little bit. So I may probably have fluffed this at one point and then just threw it on top of everything else, and it kind of got smushed a little bit. But I always like to open up my twist ties before we design on it. And today we're going to be using 10-inch mesh. That's my favorite mesh to work with. 21-inch mesh is nice for certain techniques, such as the poof technique. But other than that, I truly don't use it. I don't use it for ruffles, nor do I use it for curls. So we're just opening up all of the twists, and I will look at the screen in just a minute to make sure that you're able to see everything. I am using my iPhone today, simply because we got home, I quickly showered, and I look like a mess tonight, so I really didn't want to be fully on camera. But this wreath, I think this came from Trendy Tree actually. The item number for this is XX748827. So just open them up real quick. These are, for the most part, have been opened, so we don't have to stress too much about that. But what we're going to do is use that sign, and to match that sign, we're going to be using a little bit more of a brighter red, maybe a cherry red, rather than a ruby red. That's just because these are the ribbons that I've grabbed. So in the comments section, I'll give you guys a couple minutes while we cut our mesh. But tell me which ones you like. We have a snowball edged red velvet. We also have a similar style red velvet, not red velvet, this is a red sheer ribbon with the snowball edge. So pick two of these ribbons and we'll use two of them in today's design. I like this one simply because it is a little bit darker in red. We also have one of my favorites, which is this 1.5 inch glittered. So we're going to use one 1.5 inch and then one 2.5 inch. So either one of these will work. Just simply because they're red and white. These are the ones that I have chosen. These are 2.5 inch ribbons, and these are also a little bit thicker, so I prefer these a little bit more. This one's made kind of like out of a canvas material, where this is kind of a satin finish, but it's still quite rigid, so it does hold its shape really nicely. And we are going to be using, I think, white tinsel mesh. So rather than snowball mesh, we're just going to be using this because this is what I found, just simply looking in my storage supply. But they also have this in kind of a snowball mesh. Today, we're just going to be using this. And I also picked up a couple rolls of leftover mesh as well. We have this, which is a very thin red stripe, but this is also nice quality and very thick as well. And then we also have this, which is a little bit more cheaper quality. I was very disappointed in this one simply because it was more expensive than this, and I'd work with this one any day over this. Even though this has kind of been smushed in a bag, overall, the quality just wasn't up to par for me, so I would stay away from this one, but we don't want to waste anything, so just tell me which one you guys would like to add, if you'd like to add one at all. We could just be using the 10-inch solid white. Hi, Patricia. Good evening, everyone. Hello, blessed your page from Mississippi. Thank you. So I met so many awesome new people at Crafters Convention. It was a huge success, and I absolutely loved it. And I'm looking forward to Wreath Makers Live in New Orleans in just one short month. I think it's 1 month to the day. It is 1 month to the day, actually. So this is Deco Mesh. Again, not snowball, just as the tinsel. 10 inches by 10 yards. And I do have a little leftover from a previous project, so rather than open that at this point, even though we're probably going to need to cut into it, we'll just start by using the leftover roll. So this does have some fraying on the edge. I just practically threw it in a box, so I'm not surprised that it did that. But this is nice quality mesh as well. And we're going to be cutting these pieces approximately 18 inches long, give or take. We could even add a little bit of extra length to kind of make it a little bit less see-through. But this is a premium mesh, so it shouldn't really be all that see-through anyway. Hello from California. So glad to see you live. Thank you. So if you guys do like the idea of me going live every day, not doing a complex tutorial every day, but just something every day, just let me know. It does give me that little bit of oomph to continue doing this. It was great to meet you too. So I don't remember working with this particular work wreath before, so I'm not quite sure how many twist ties it actually has. But we'll just cut approximately 18, and if we need more, we can cut into more. And if we cut too much, I will always use it in another project. So I'll just save a leftover piece or two. But I don't feel like sitting there counting them right now. So the Soul Sisters did give me one of their awesome ribbon cutting devices that come in all sorts of lengths. Right now it's packed away with all of my luggage, so I didn't have time to check that, but I definitely will be using that, and I think that's one of the coolest things on the market right now. You guys have seen me and Tanya cut our ribbon, and we cut them individually, and it does take time. So today, we are doing everything step by step, and I know a lot of people do get aggravated by that. And if that's the case, you could always just post it on your timeline or wait and come back and be able to rewatch it at whatever point you want, fast forward, skip ahead. But we are doing everything in steps today, and I didn't do no prep work at all. The second two. So I already forgot which ones I held up, but we'll make it work anyway. So I'm just trying to move my mesh away from my glue skillet, that way I don't burn it. And we are kind of getting overloaded with mesh right now. So I'm just going to cut whatever's left of this roll, and if we need more, we can always cut into a second roll. And as you approach the end of a roll, you'll notice that it curls up very easily like this. And this works if you're adding curls to the wreath like this and putting one in each section. But it's not really that great if you're doing the ruffle technique because it is a little bit more difficult. But like I said, we are using a leftover roll. So never throw away your mesh. And this one I didn't actually measure at all. Whatever the length is, it's fine, whether it's 20 or 24 inches. I'm not going to cut away the extra because I just think that's wasteful. Because we could just have a little bit longer and kind of bulk it up a little bit more, even if one piece is left over that's a little bit longer. So now we're going to start adding some ribbon to, adding some mesh to our work wreath. We opened it up to the best of our ability, and you'll see how much easier it is to add it once all the twists are open, because then you don't have to sit there and fiddle with it. We're just adding ruffles to this. We're adding one ruffle to each twist. And I'm going to try to use the ones that are really curled up like this towards the end of the roll first, because I find them to be incredibly annoying. But this is what a ruffle looks like. Again, 18 to 20 inches, and it does give nice coverage once we add it throughout the entire wreath. Hi, everybody. Blessed your page. Thank you. Red snow... See? Perfect. Red snowball sheer, red and white striped. Awesome. I like that. So if you guys like that combination... give a like so I can see them all on the screen, and then we'll use that combination. Or if you recommend something else, we could do something else. But I didn't really go too crazy with all different colors today, mainly because I'm pooped, and second of all, I just didn't feel like looking for all the different colors. But the nicest thing happened while I was away. My grandmother cleaned the entire house, and right now my workshop down here is looking amazing. So kudos to her. I absolutely love her, and I missed her so much when I was gone. Even those 6 days, I loved my grandmother so much that I missed her. But give it another hour, and we'll probably be fighting. So a question I get asked a lot is, does it make a difference where we start or where we finish with our mesh? And certain techniques, yes, it does. It doesn't really necessarily matter, but you do want to work in the same method. But for today, since we're adding the same piece of mesh to every single twist tie, it doesn't matter where you start or you stop, as long as every single twist tie gets one piece of mesh in the end. It doesn't make a difference. Hi, Tracy. So how is the screen showing? Is everything okay? I don't know if I'm in the frame right now. I keep moving to the side a little bit. So let me know if you're able to see everything. Hi, Nick, watching from Mexico. Awesome. LOL, I need to borrow your grandmother. That's funny. Yeah, she's awesome. So a tip I've given my exclusive wreath community members is, whenever you're doing the ruffle technique, I always recommend you pull your mesh towards you rather than moving your hands towards the mesh. I just think it's a lot easier to work that way. Everybody's different, but I just prefer pulling my mesh towards me than moving my hands constantly towards the mesh. What are you guys thinking? You think that's a good idea? I can't tell you how many people at Crafters Convention told me that they missed my lives. I do lives sporadically now, but I used to do them practically every single day. So if that's something you'd like to see, I know I say that all the time, but if that's something you'd like to see, just let me know. Seeing your comments and your motivation definitely helps push me towards doing more lives. And this is a good technique to create a lot of bases ahead of time. So we're creating one today, but let's say we know Christmas is our busiest season, and we know this wreath's going to be a hot seller. If that's the case, you could make 50 of these bases in very basic colors like white, burlap, red, colors that you could use practically year-round or for multiple holidays and seasons, and then just store them on top of each other. As long as you don't have anything on them, I have found them to store perfectly fine. And you could also be placing them in giant trash bags, giant black trash bags, to keep them from getting dusty. That's another method that works very nicely. So we've placed all of the mesh working on the inside, and now our next step is to place mesh going on the outside. Where's Tanya tonight? So Tanya just called me before the video, and she may pop in a little bit because she may get a notification. I haven't seen her in about a week too, and I miss her like crazy. But she called me about a half hour ago, or basically right before this video, and asked to hang out with her and some of our other mutual friends. But like I said, I want to start doing lives with you guys as much as I possibly can. So it's probably the first and the last time I've told Tanya no. But we'll see how this video does and how long we take, because I do miss my friends a lot. Exactly. Nice tip to make ahead the bases. So that's a great tip. It saves you a lot of time. This is probably the most tedious part of designing your wreath. If you have all your ribbons cut out, you basically can do everything step by step. You could cover all of your bases ahead of time and not have to worry about that when the Christmas rush starts happening. So now we're going to cut into a second roll. So we probably did a whole wreath with that, or accented a whole wreath with that, maybe two, and that's where we ended up with. So we basically covered more than 3/4 of this wreath, and now we're going to cut into a second roll. So it is economical to save your mesh, even if it's only a few pieces, especially colors like this where you can use them universally. Have them on with you. We love to meet them. Yeah, I definitely will. You guys have met some of my friends, not all of them. Some of them are a little bit camera shy. See, this is the perfect type of mesh to use for the ruffle technique. It doesn't wind up on itself, and you could very easily create the ruffles. But of course, we can't use a brand new roll for every single piece of mesh. And I think we'll need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 pieces, and that's it. Hello, I'm a first-time viewer. Welcome! But like I was saying, I felt so inspired from meeting so many different people. You always learn something new from every single person you meet. We all have such different styles and different ways of doing things. So that's 4 pieces. We'll cut 2 more, and I think that'll be enough. Again, I'm sorry if you don't like these kind of videos where everything is done by hand in the video. It does take a long time, but I do want to chit-chat with you guys for a little bit because I haven't seen you guys in a pretty long time. And also another tip, always make sure you lock this or else you could really cut yourself. This blade is still going strong. From the last video I talked about, I've had this blade on this for over a year. As long as you don't cut pipe cleaners or anything like that, once you get the technique of using it, you basically can use it until it's pretty much useless or when you could touch it with your fingers. But a fresh new blade does scare me because they are incredibly sharp. And if I can get away with using it without doing super multiple cuts, then I'll just use that up until I have to throw it away or recycle it. So for those of you that may have seen Tanya cut with it or my sister cut with it, they just don't cut as much mesh as I do, so they haven't really mastered the way of holding it to do one quick cut. So this is what I mean by pulling my mesh towards me. Very rarely you'll see me move my hands towards the mesh. I think this makes it a little bit more even when adding it. So there's just a little tip. Love the hands-on, don't be sorry. Awesome. So if you are interested in purchasing this wreath, I have just posted the link in the comments section. This is probably the first Christmas wreath of the season, and it's July 1st. So this year, I think I'm going to be ahead of the game and have lots and lots of designs listed, which is also a great motivator for doing these videos because I won't run out of wreaths, and I'll be able to list a lot more than I did last year. So if this one doesn't suit your fancy, we will have more, hopefully one a day. You are the first wreath maker I ever watched. Love your instruction, miss your lives. Thank you. Are you going to make your fresh Christmas wreaths again this year? Absolutely. So that's one of my favorite things to do every single year, and I don't foresee me ever stopping it as long as I live in New England and I have a source of evergreens. I do purchase them from a small local farm family, so they're awesome for letting me purchase their greens in bulk. But yeah, that's why I also like doing Christmas wreaths ahead of time, because once a week and a half, 2 weeks before Thanksgiving comes, I am full swing designing fresh Christmas wreaths, which a lot of you guys have purchased. Last year was the first year I shipped them all over the world, actually. But a lot of you from Arizona and California purchased them. So I hope you enjoyed your fresh Christmas wreath. I think there's nothing like it. So what do you guys think so far? It's starting to look really nice just with the white mesh. But we need one more piece and then we're done. I know I said one more piece 10 pieces ago, but this is it. And we are going to be cutting all of the ribbon by hand, but in the next video, if you see me cutting ribbon, it will be with the Soul Sisters device. I think that's awesome. It comes with 3 different sizes. I think 10, 11, and 12 inches, or 10, 12, 14. That sounds more like it, 10, 12, 14. So you can cut your ribbon lengths however long you need them, and it's just one quick cut rather than sitting there cutting every single one individually. So today will probably be my last time doing that individually. So here we go. All done with the mesh base. I think that's pretty as it is. So like I said, I did want to do this in every single one of my windows outside for summer. Since summer's already here, I think maybe we'll do it for fall. Maybe we'll just do a burlap or burlap mesh wreath in every single one of my windows. I think that'll be very pretty. I do have a colonial style house, so I think that'll look nice. But our next step, let's add a little bit of this. We're not going to add, I don't think we'll add one to every piece. We'll see. We'll see. So here's the base so far, all done. Also a good tip is to use the same colored tinsel ties as you do with your mesh. That way you don't have to cut them off. And that only goes for pre-made work wreaths. I always remove my pipe cleaners. So let's see how long I want these. I think we're going to do... Let's do curls today. So we'll cut them about 16 inches. We'll see if that's too long. I do want them to be nice and vivid. That's a little too much. A little bit wasteful cutting them that long. So maybe we'll just do... Maybe we'll just do 10 inches. We'll do 10. Let's see how that looks. Yep, that's perfectly fine. See, this one was about 16 inches, and this is only 10 inches, and this still has perfect coverage. So this is a great mesh to work with. So I'm cutting it at the 18-inch mark, and then about the 10-inch mark, give or take. I'm not going to be precise. And the reason I'm cutting at the 10 to 18 is simply because the 0 marker does have a little hole to hang it at the store, and I am a lefty, so it is kind of difficult to do a nice clean cut with a little hole being there. Hi Nick, so nice to meet you and your sister. Your wreath is beautiful. Thank you. So the awesome thing about it is that we raised $400 just from that one wreath that I demoed in a half hour for charity for an animal rescue, and that made my day. In total, they raised $3,500 for an animal rescue. And I just think that's amazing. That's me too. I'm a lefty. I know. So I'm going to cut, I don't know, we'll see how every other looks. And if we think we need a little bit more, we could do every single twist. But whenever I add curls to it or ribbon to it, I always make sure I open up the twists. I don't like my mesh wreaths to be too poofy, and by leaving the twists unopened and just placing everything on top, I think the wreath kind of looks flat, but also bulky at the same time. So I kind of like my ribbons to be shooting out from the middle of the wreath, kind of being hidden in the middle, and then shooting out, which is why I open up the twists. I was so glad they raised everything that was needed for the Rescues project. I know, it was amazing. Oh, Crystal! Crystal's the one that purchased the wreath. So a big round of applause for her. A virtual round of applause. Thank you, Crystal, for that. That was awesome. Absolutely awesome. So now what we're going to do is simply just pinch them, make it flat as possible. Often people get kind of messed up with a little bit simply because it does kind of look like a cannoli if you don't have either side leveled out. But if that's the case, just drop it on the table and squish it a little bit in the middle, and you end up with a perfect curl. And like I said before, we are opening up the twist to place it in. And just usually the way I grab my mesh, the fraying ends are in the back. So I like to have that in the back so that it's nice and clear in the front. So that's just something that I do. Put it as far down as you possibly can, and then close up the twist once more. And that just gives a little bit of red without overdoing it, since we are adding red and white ribbon as well. We're going to start off doing every other, like I said, and if that doesn't give us the effect that we want, we can come back in and add it to every single piece. Over 600 people, that's awesome. It's easy to do when the product is amazing and the cause is worthy. Aww. She's awesome. She really was. So many amazing people were there. Trendy Tree sent me. I love Trendy Tree. I really do. So at Crafters Convention, I actually shopped for my design using all of Scott's products. So we arrived, and I was looking through the stuff, and in all honesty, I wasn't really in the mood to sit there and shop for the design. So I just said, well, give it another day, let everybody pick what they want and purchase what they want from his shop. And then right after that first day, I swear all of the vendors just did amazing at the convention. Everything was selling out like crazy. So then I just had to go out and pick all of the stuff that we needed for the project because things were starting to disappear. Everybody was purchasing everything. So the design we created was basically leftover stuff that Scott had for sale at the event. But again, open up the twist, make sure you place your mesh as far back as you possibly can. And you'll notice that I'm not really making sure that it's even. This side's a little bit longer than this side. In the end, you're not really going to notice those small details like that. So we've added to every other. What we're going to do now is we're going to do the inner ring, and we'll see if we like it with every other. If not, we can come back. We still have about half the roll left over. And this mesh was also left over from a project we did last year. Or maybe even Valentine's Day, I'm not quite sure. So just for starters, I like to kind of place my mesh in between the mesh we already have on the outside. So since we placed one here and one there, I'm going to kind of place it somewhere here. For every single twist, it doesn't obviously line up perfectly, but if I'm able to do that, I kind of like that effect. And of course, if we decide we want to add it to every single one, it's not going to make a difference anyway. Thank you, Tammy. Hello from Brazil. So I'm thinking we'll try to add a piece to every single twist. It looks nice as it is. I just think we have a lot of white going on right now, and it might be nice to add a different technique on top of this technique. I kind of like the different textures like this. So I think we'll just come back in and add a second piece. So this is the piece that we cut about 16 or 18 inches long, and that's why I said it was too long. Obviously, it's a little bit more bulky than the other ones, but the other ones at about 9 to 10 inches long are perfectly fine. So we're using half the mesh for these ones than we are for this, and there truly isn't such a huge difference. Okay, so this is what we have so far. I don't know if the camera's picking it up 100%. We'll be back on with my Mevo tomorrow, and I'll be able to zoom in and hold things up. But I just didn't want to be on camera today, not after an 18-hour car ride. So now we're going to come back in and add it to every single twist. I just think it'll add a little bit more dimension to it and fill in everything a little bit more. What made you decide to drive to St. Louis? So this is something that me and my sister were kind of stuck on. We hear people say St. Louis. We hear people say St. Louis. If you guys could just clarify. I know it's a French word, so it's more than likely Louis. But for those of you that are from St. Louis or St. Louis, just let us know what you all say, and we'll start saying that, me and my sister. But we did have a little break where we could go visit it, and I've never been to Missouri. Or at least I can't remember being in Missouri. And it was only about 15 minutes away from Illinois, where we were staying in Collinsville. So we made the trip, and it's very city-like there. Obviously, it's a big city, so there was no place to park. So me and my sister parked, well, my dad parked in the a tow zone. We jumped out, took a quick picture, and then jumped back in the car. But then when I got back to the hotel, everybody was saying to me that you could actually go out and go into the arch, and I didn't know that was a thing. I thought it was just a giant piece of concrete, and people told me it was kind of like a ride inside, like an elevator lift where it takes you throughout the entire arch. So we're a little upset we didn't get to do that, but all in all, I'm still happy that we made the trip there, even though it was only an extra 15 minutes or so. So now we're just going to cut a few pieces of this mesh, a few more pieces to finish it up. So this mesh we've used many times in videos. I think this mesh we've used multiple times in Home Talk. So this is one of my favorite types of mesh. I really like how thick it is. It really holds its shape greatly. So I cut about 6 or 7 more, and I don't really want to sit there and try to stretch out the mesh anymore. So we'll see how many more pieces we need after adding these few. But like I said, once you near the end of the roll, it's perfect to use for curls. So if you ever did want to just stop halfway through a roll and start a new roll and save these for a future project if you knew you were going to use them, that's a great idea as well, because you're not wasting anything. You're just thinking and designing smarter, and don't have to sit there and worry about trying to maneuver the mesh. Hi, Nick from New Mexico. Yeah, Illinois is, the S is silent, right? Yeah, Illinois. Nick, why don't the craft stores carry the 10-inch deco mesh? Have to order everything online. I'm not quite sure why they don't do that. They usually just have a smaller one, and most all stores have the 21-inch rolls. So it's obviously more difficult for me because I don't really like working with the 21-inch mesh all that much, even though I have tons and tons and tons of it. I prefer working with the 10-inch. And if you are a newbie and haven't worked with deco mesh before, I definitely recommend doing a ruffle technique, the technique we did today, rather than the poof technique. I think it's a lot easier for beginners, and you don't have to really stress as much about making it perfect and even. Okay, so we have a couple pieces left right here, and then we're done with adding this mesh. And notice what I'm doing is I'm placing all of the tubes facing away from the wreath. So think of these as flower petals when you're designing. You always want them to be facing away from the middle. Think of this as the sunflower seeds and all of these as the petals. I like that effect where everything is shooting away from the middle portion. And in this case, it's going to work in our favor because we are using a circular sign. Okay. So now we finished adding all of our deco mesh on top of our deco mesh. And what do you guys think? I think it's very pretty this way. And it does give a different texture on top. And especially once you add the ribbon, or if you're sitting from the side, you're able to see all of the tubes from the curls. And I really like that effect. So our next step can either be attaching our sign or attaching our ribbon. Here's what the sign's going to look like in the middle. And I think we're going to hold off on adding the sign for now and add the ribbon, simply because I don't want to sit there and try to pull all of the ribbon out from underneath the sign. So the ribbon we're going to use today that you guys picked out is the 2.5-inch striped ribbon. And you also, this is all I have left of this roll, but we also have another roll right here, which in all honesty may not be enough either. And then you also want this ribbon in it as well. So this one, we more than likely will do little bows in it. I think that's kind of a pretty effect. And I'll show you guys that as we start adding the second layer. So this, we're going to cut about 12 inches long. And I think that'll give us more than enough per twist. You can cut them 12 inches, you can cut them 14 inches. It totally depends on what you want. It doesn't have to be exact either. You saw me measure it, and I pulled it away. So this could be a little over, a little under. But for those of you that are going to fast forward this video or leave at this part, what we're going to do is end up folding our ribbon in half if you're designing this later on while watching this video, and then cut from the middle out towards the wired edge. And what ends up happening is you get a dovetail, and I love working with dovetails like that. I think they're very pretty, and it does add a professional finishing touch. So now we can just use our first ribbon as a guide mark. And for those of you that are new to cutting your ribbon, always use the first piece as your ruler, if you will. For those of you that remember my first video with Tanya, she cut the ribbon after each consecutive piece. And what ends up happening is that if you cut a little bit shorter and a little bit shorter, your 12-inch piece ends up being like 3.5 inches, like Tanya did in that one video. So we're adding one of these to every single twist, and this is going to take some time, and I am sorry about that, but I know a lot of you guys do just kind of like sitting here and relaxing. I was told at Crafters Convention that I have a soothing voice. I'm not quite sure if that's good or not, but I hope it is. So I'm just going to drop the ribbon to the floor. And like I said, I did take a shower earlier, but I'm obviously going to have to take one again because I'm going to be covered in glitter working with this particular ribbon. This one is very glittery. But once we get the Soul Sisters cutting device for the ribbon, it'll all be in one step. All you have to do is fold the ribbon over a board and then do one cut and then dovetail. I just didn't have time to search through all of my luggage and find it. But it's definitely going to be a lifesaver. I cannot wait to use that. Your voice is the exact reason I love you, and your talent, of course. I agree, your voice is relaxing. The other day, this person told me that it puts people to sleep. I know a lot of my viewers, it's either super late for them or super early. So right now, most people are kind of winding down. For us, it's 9:30, 9:40. So a lot of people watch these videos in bed on their phones or on their laptops. So if I put you to sleep, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But let's see if we can get 700 or 800 people on tonight. If you don't mind taking a second and sharing this video, I greatly appreciate it. Like I said before, it always gives me a little bit more motivation to continue doing these lives, especially if we're going to try to do them every single night like I plan on doing. And I love talking to you guys, I really do. What is the name of your cutter? So my cutter, this is an Olfa rotary cutter with a Fiskars blade. Fiskars makes just the same product, same great quality. And then my scissors are Fiskars scissors, and you do have to be careful with these scissors because they are incredibly sharp. The other day when I was doing my demonstration, I was talking about my favorite pair of scissors, which happened to be Dollar Tree Betty Crocker scissors, and somebody actually ran me one up on stage, which is awesome. So I don't know how many we have. We're just going to dovetail as many as we have, and if we need more, we can always dovetail some more and cut some more afterwards. Thank you. But you don't need fancy products. I was telling people on stage the other day, like I say in the videos all the time too, you don't need a steel pick machine. For those of you that have watched me for a while, I did get one from my dad as a surprise. But you know, it's truly not something you need. You don't need expensive fancy scissors. As long as you take relatively good care of your products, they last a long time. I used to use only Betty Crocker scissors until I ended up with these somehow. But even these, I'm sure my grandmother or my father picked these up using a 60% off coupon from Michael's or Joann's. So even then, for the price, they do last a long time. And it couldn't have cost more than $10 or $15 using a 60% off coupon. But for Betty Crocker scissors, they were only $1, and I use them all the time. They're still my favorite scissors to this day. So everything we do does not have to be expensive or intricate. I want you guys to be able to do this, and if I can do it, honestly, anybody can. And I'm not just saying that. Everything I do or try to teach, if you open your mind to it, it's not super complex. Okay, so I do think in the end we're going to need extra additional pieces, but let's get to cutting some of... Actually, let's add this first, and then we can cut the 1.5 inch ribbon. So for those of you that are just tuning in, the mesh was cut 18 inches, and then the curls on top were cut 9 to 10 inches. So now what I'm doing is I'm just placing one piece of mesh one piece of ribbon in each just to see what this looks like real quick. So this was cut at 12 inches in length. You could cut it at 14. I think in the long run, I think this is going to be perfectly fine, the lengths we have cut them. But let's add the 1.5 inch just to see if we like those two colors together. And like I said, we are going to do a different technique with the 1.5 inch, for some of them at least. We are going to create a little bow tie. So this one we'll probably we'll cut these ones 14 inches just to mix it up. Not everything has to be the exact same. Almost 650 people. Awesome. Hopefully we can hit 700 tonight. But I am so glad I went this week because it did give me so much motivation and inspiration, which I'm going to pass on to you guys by doing a lot more lives and having a lot more wreaths available for sale. So these ones are 14 inches, and these are sheer. Hi, Connie. Hi, everybody. And what you can do sometimes, depending on if the ribbon crinkles very easily, is you can kind of go like this. It's not going to be exact, but this wreath doesn't have to be exact. And I can't stress that enough. Nothing has to be perfect. So we'll do some of these. For the other ribbon, I didn't really like to do it for that, just because when that creases, it is a little bit more difficult to straighten out perfectly. So I don't know how many we just made. But rather than just try to sit there and snip them all, since we did cut a little bit longer, we'll just snip them all at once like that. So I am just taking a very small amount from each of them. And there we go, just like that. But I'm so excited to use Soul Sister's device. I think it's going to come in so many different instances where I could use it. And that way we don't have to worry about creasing it. So this we could dovetail or we could just leave as is, as long as it's not frayed, since this is a very sheer ribbon, which honestly is not my favorite ribbon to work with. But since it's so sheer, you're not really going to notice if it's dovetailed. So I may decide to dovetail once I put it on my wall and take pictures of it. But in the meantime, I'm not going to stress about it. So just to see what it looked like in the beginning, we placed one 2.5 inch ribbon. And like I said, we can dovetail later on if we decide we don't like it like that. So I am going to skip every other right now. And the reason being is I am going to create little bows for this. I think that'll look kind of pretty. Cedar Creek, Texas. Southern Illinois. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. So I'm not really going to worry about fluffing at this point. We still have to attach our sign and do everything. So let's just worry about getting everything in place. Oklahoma City, Cleveland, Ohio, California. So the other night I did spend a night in Columbus, Ohio, which I believe is pretty close to it, which was awesome. Okay, so we added one to every single twist around every other twist on the outside, and now we'll do the same on the inside, and then I think we'll come back in with that bow that I was talking about earlier, and maybe you guys will like it, maybe you won't, but we won't know until we try. near Syracuse, New York. So just like you guys watch vloggers and videos and lives, I watch videos like that too. And there's a chocolate company in Syracuse, New York called Hercules Chocolate. Small family-owned business for the last 100 years. And the son decided to start doing live videos on YouTube and videos on YouTube just of him and his family. And over the last year, his family grew 300,000 followers on YouTube. So whether it's wreath making or anything you decide to do, social media is the place to be doing it. And you'd just be surprised as to how fast things truly can grow. You'll also notice that I'm placing the 1.5 inch ribbon on top. And the reason for that is that I don't want to hide the 1.5 inch ribbon. It is sheer. You can't really see it all that well against the 2.5 inch. So I place that on top so you're still able to see it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut some little bows. And we can do that by either creating little loops and adding them to this, or creating a bow in its entirety. So we'll see which way we like it better. So I'm just creating a little bow or a little set of loops, seeing if we like that length. This length seems to be perfectly fine. So I'll just snip it off there. So since I cut so many extra pieces of this that I could use in another project, what we can do is just cut a length of ribbon. In this case, it's pretty much exactly 20 inches. We're creating 2 little loops and placing a set of tails behind it. We could do this all in one step, but like I said, I have so many leftover pieces that we'll just do it in one step, 2 separate steps like this. And then we have a little bow that we could add. So the way we're going to add this is we're going to place a 2.5 inch ribbon underneath, the 1.5 inch on top, and now we're going to place it in all of those negative spaces where we didn't add ribbon. And then we got a little loop. What do you guys think of that? So it may be hard to see on this particular video, but I will post a Halloween video that I did using Halloween ribbon with this technique and a round sign. And I also did it using a Christmas wreath with the red velvet snowball mesh. For those of you that are interested in seeing that, it may be a little bit difficult to see on this particular wreath, but I do have video showcasing that a little bit better. Okay, so here's the longer ones, and I cut those, like I said, about 20 inches long, creating 2 individual loops, taking one of the 14-inch tails and placing those behind. And you may be saying, why don't you just do it in one step? And like I said before, we certainly could do that. So I'll just be working with whatever's closest to my hand. But like I said, we aren't adding these to every single twist. I think that would be overwhelming. We're just doing them to every single other twist. And we'll fluff them later on. But it does create a pretty unique effect by having both regular tails as well as little bows like that. So we haven't even fluffed it, and it's starting to look good so far. But we always like to fluff last, in my opinion. And then we also like to fluff once it's on our door to take pictures, because pictures always end up looking very different than what you see in person. You notice a lot more imperfections that you may have to adjust or fix. So I'm just placing them for now. I'm not fixing them. And we need to cut a few more of the 2.5 inch as well. So we do these videos all together without doing any prep work. But if you do want to see prep work or more in-depth tutorials in higher resolution using a pre-recorded camera, I do offer videos in my exclusive wreath community, and you can sign up at nickseasonaldecor.com. Right now it's $15 a month for 8 videos that have been edited down. I describe every step that we're doing, and I simplify. So if we are adding ribbon like this, I show you how to add one, and then everything else gets added after it's pre-cut. That way you don't have to sit there and watch me cut all of these different pieces of ribbon. So let's just cut a few more of the 2.5 inch. I think we're only going to need about 4 or 5. And I'm sorry for going back to this, but we just didn't cut enough. But also a good tip is to never use your rotary cutter for this. If you have an old dull blade that you don't really necessarily care about to use to cut your mesh, or if it's not cutting your mesh perfectly, of course you could substitute that instead of scissors. I don't know how well it'll do because I've never cut my ribbon using my mesh cutter. But who knows, it may be worth giving a try if you have an old blade you don't care about. So we'll just dovetail these real quick. I am tripling them up so that you don't have to see me cut them individually. But again, fold in half, cut from the middle out towards the wired edge, and then you end up with your perfect dovetails. Where is my helper tonight? She's actually hanging out with some of our friends. I got the invite, but I decided to skip that tonight and hang out with all of you guys. But I'll be seeing them very soon. And who knows, maybe Tanya will want to be in a video this week. What do you guys think? Let me see likes if you want to see Tanya in another video. I know she's crazy, and I know she messes up every time she's told to do something, but I love her to death, so... All right, lots of likes coming in. All right, Tanya can be in a video. Okay, so just a few more on the inside, and then I think we're good when it comes to that. So we have one more left. And then we're done with adding ribbon. If you want to see me add some picks, I have some picks and a few ornaments. And of course, we still have to attach our sign. Okay, and our last twist. There we go. So rather than sit there and try to fluff everything and then redo it once we add our sign, our next step is going to be actually adding the sign. And here's the beautiful sign we're going to be adding today. It says North Pole Airmail, and it has a picture of a reindeer, which is kind of funny. And actually, one of my neighbors has a mailbox on top of a telephone pole, and there's a big sign that says airmail, and I think that's awesome. I love that idea. So I think we're just going to attach it simply by wiring it in just from the metal hanger. So I flip the wreath over, and now we'll take a zip tie and wire it in. And then I'll come back and I'll secure it a little bit more. But for the sake of the video, we'll just zip tie it on real quick. Okay, so our next step is going to be fluffing it. And we didn't dovetail the 1.5 inch ribbon, and I think in the end it's not really going to make a huge difference since it is so sheer. But just separate your loops, pull them out, stretch them out, and make sure that there's no creases. But what do you guys think about those little bows? They might be a little bit hidden simply because we are using such sheer ribbon. But if you're using a more thick ribbon, like red velvet, I just think they're the cutest little things. But for those, I typically do every other. That way it doesn't distract too much from everything else that we have on the wreath. So just keep that in mind if you do decide to use. So we are fluffing this now, but like I said, we are going to have to come back in when we place it on our wall, and we will have to refluff it. That happens no matter how much I try to fluff it before. It always seems to happen, and I'm more than okay with that because I always want to kind of mess around with it a little bit once it's hanging up. Okay, so we fixed all of the ones around the inside, and now we'll go around the perimeter and do the same exact thing. And I think it's a little bit more complex around the perimeter simply because we want all of the ribbons to be shooting away and visible from the front. We don't want any of them twisted sideways. It defeats the whole purpose, and if you do want to be able to sell this, you want them to be able to see how much ribbon they truly are getting. And if you do lose a ribbon tail, or if you didn't twist tie it completely secure, just go back in and twist it once more. And we won't do this in the video just to save time, but I always, before shipping out my wreaths, I make sure all of the twist ties are secure and none of the mesh is going anywhere. And I recommend you do the same as well. And if any of them are a little bit longer on one side than the other, and it's noticeable, if it's only about 1/2 inch, you truly don't notice it. But if it is noticeable, just pull your ribbon from one side to the other, and you'll be all set. So we did miss one twist tie, so we'll just come back in and add one more piece. But would you guys like to see us add some ornaments to this? Or anything like that? If you do, just let me know, and we could add some. I did only grab red and white, but I don't think that'll be a problem. So we did do this in 2 separate steps, but you could very easily just create a single 2-tailed bow like this in one easy step and save time on cutting. I just cut too many initially. But like I said, open up all of the twists and then place your ribbon and your mesh underneath. Ornaments and picks. You got it. It does look like candy cane. Exactly. So I love red and white together. Even though this is airmail or a reindeer-themed wreath, I think we can very easily get away with just using red and white. Of course, if you wanted to come back in and use other colors, the sign is a little bit more rustic, and we are using a little bit more brighter white and brighter red. But nonetheless, it still works. We are sticking to that color scheme. And the ornaments I have are some giant red ornaments that we could just pepper in a few. Of course, we don't need 50 of them. We just need 3 or 6. And we also have some red picks. So let's get started just adding a few of the red picks first. These ones came from Jacobson Floral, and I love them. And I think there's multiple layers, so there is multiple layers. What I'll do is I'll just break it down into smaller sections. That way it's not too bulky, and we get more bang for our buck. So just simply pull them apart, and then look at how pretty those are. And these are stuck on individually, so when I pull them apart, they come right off. They're not hot glued on. So I am applying a generous amount of hot glue using my glue skillet. That's another question I get asked all the time. Mind the glitter. But I always hot glue everything in if it's lightweight like this. And even though it's lightweight, I always make sure I use a substantial amount of hot glue. I don't skimp on that whatsoever. So I will hold the wreath up after the video, and I'll take the camera off of my tripod. That way you're able to get a great view of the finished product. But for the time being, we're just going to work with it on the table, because if I move the camera stand too much, the phone will actually fall off of it. So I'm just poking in a few of them. We're not adding a whole bunch. We're just adding them at random. But if you are interested in seeing this or purchasing this, I do have it in my Etsy shop, listed under a Facebook Live video for July 1st. And when you toss the wreath around like that, your ribbons do become a little bit jumbled up. So that is why we do come back in and fluff it once it's on our door. So we can add a few ornaments if you'd like. So I'm just adding these at random, and we have one piece left. So this came just from one pick, and I purchased a huge bag of these picks from Jacobson Floral, 7-inch glitter cedar, and these are from Holiday Design, so this is Jacobson's brand. And I have worked with Jacobson. They have sponsored some of my Home Talk videos, and they're lovely. I love working with them. But let's just add a few of the red ornaments if you'd like. I think maybe 3 or 5 will work. And I will add these around the perimeter. I won't have them too close to the middle of the wreath. So I placed one there, and we're placing them in a triangular-like fashion. And I tend to like to work that way. I like working in groups of 3. There's no rule set in stone that says you have to. Of course, that's just a preference, and it is a good guideline to work by in case you don't necessarily know exactly how to add them. So we're going to wait for those to dry for a second, but if you have any questions at all, shoot them in the comment section, and while I'm here, I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. And then we'll take the wreath, hang it up on our easel, and you'll be able to see it. But while that's drying, so the ornaments don't fall off, nor do the picks, here's something we made in the exclusive wreath community just a few days before I left. It's a rooster, and I love it. This is probably one of my favorite projects to date that we've created. I love working with these type of containers, so I just thought I'd show you guys that real quick while these ornaments dry. So now that they're drying, I'll just put it up on my easel so you guys can get a better look and hopefully like it. Alright, so it might get a little bit shaky for a second, and that's just because I'm taking my camera actually off of the tripod and panning over. But here is the completed wreath. Oh, just trying to get it to focus. Let me know how you guys like that. Of course, we still have to fluff, and this is what I'm talking about up here. So once you kind of fluff it and you move the wreath around, everything does become a little bit jumbled up like that. So it's always a great, great idea to refluff once more. And of course, you can come back in with more ornaments, more picks, or keep it like this. We may decide to add some more, but of course, we'll do that behind the camera. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you all hopefully tomorrow. And if you do like the idea of me going live every single night for the month of July, let me know. Could you put a bow on this design? You certainly could. I, however, wouldn't. I think it would distract from the design. So I wouldn't add a bow. We've added a lot of little bows that still need to be fluffed a little bit. But I'll see you all tomorrow, and if you have any ideas as to what you'd like to see, as always, drop them in the comments section, and I'll definitely take a look at them. So I hope you guys have a great night, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye, everyone.